right. Well, welcome back, Natalie. This is our first episode of season 3.
It is.
We're at season 3 already?
Yes.
It's been a little while. I think the last one we did was, last November.
With Tom Staub.
Yeah. It's good to be back.
It is.
And we have our special guest, Jenn Salladay, here with us.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm going to let you give the introduction since you know Jenn very well. And I'm just now getting to know her. Who is Jenn Salladay?
I'll how about I do a soft pitch and then you tell us who you are.
Oh, okay. Let's do this.
Jenn is with us today, and we are extremely grateful. She has worked in the Austin and Central Texas real estate market as a realtor for over, fill in the blank, Jenn.
10 years.
There we go. And I know, Brian, one of the things when you and I were talking about today's episode and, digging in with market experts, both on the realtor, home builder, and lender side, an added plus in who Jenn Salladay is she has just been nominated by the Austin Business Journal for Realtor of the Year.
Thank you.
Congratulations.
Congrats.
Thank you so much.
Maybe you expand on my very high level description.
Oh, yeah. Well, I do residential real estate. I have a construction background, marketing background. I do work with buyers. I work with sellers. I work with investors. So yeah, I'm everywhere.
Yeah. And developers.
Yes. So some good perspective there. Fun projects coming.
You should be happy to know. I think you are the first realtor we've had on this show, at least exclusively just a realtor. I mean, normally it is called BUILDCast.
Wow.
After all.
And I feel like you know a lot of realtors, so this is huge.
We do. So, and obviously that's a major cornerstone of what we do at Thrive. But, what an ongoing conversation we continued a bit last year has been the relationships between home builders, realtors, and lenders. So I think I'm really excited because I want you to have complete unfiltered remarks. I mean,
Absolutely.
We can bleep out any names, we can do any of that we want to, but really excited to kind of dig in because our perspective has largely been from home builders and developers.
True.
So really excited about this. So I know you'd wanted to kick off with market updates.
That's the marketing in me.
What is going on right now, really over the last 30 to 60 days?
Yeah. Well, I mean, I feel like we're seeing buyers coming back slowly. The rates, I mean, it's our new norm. So that's going to be.
You can't talk about rates on the show.
I can't talk about rates.
It's a cardinal rule of BUILDCast. We do not speak rates.
We don't talk about rates. Okay. Buyers are coming back in the market. I mean, it's taken a turn. It's definitely, we're going through a correction right now. So I think what I'm running into the most is getting real with sellers and what their properties are worth. And on the buy side, again, trying to convince sellers this is where we're at in this market. And, on the buy side, we're getting some really good deals. And on the sell side, we're really having to work hard to get buyers in the door. Yeah. So that's kind of what's going on right now. But I feel like in the last week or two, it's kind of things are sparking. Things are getting better. In the luxury market, we're seeing, more millionaires than we've seen in, a long time. The last few years, tons of millionaires moving here, tons of billionaires, and the kinds of properties that are planned and coming to the market. I was out touring one on Lake Austin earlier this week. And I mean, the price point starts at 50 million. So, I mean, there's just a different kind of buyer and a different kind of energy coming in. So I'm excited. I think, this next few months, things will maybe be about the same. I mean, I feel like there's more people coming back, but long term we'll be good.
So you feel like the upper end market, really the extreme upper end is doing pretty well. What about that $300,000 to $800,000 range? How are you guys feeling about that?
It's slower. It's definitely, a slower market, but as affordable housing, I mean, that's a big concern.
What is that?
What is affordable?
Where is that?
Oh,
a unicorn.
And well, we should also let Jen know we don't say affordable, we say attainable.
Yes, there's the little rules. We should have had our.
I know we didn't give you a
Our own
list of rules.
Rules of order
Yes.
before every podcast.
All right. Well, we're driving further outside of the
Yeah.
city. We're going out to these, outer communities, but
Mhm.
there's a lot of opportunity. There's land, the prices are more attainable.
Mhm.
So that's, I think, where we're going to see, a big progression of people getting outside of the city at a more attainable price point. The luxury price points, there's just so many projects downtown, and everybody's trying to snatch that up around the waterfront, and these big ranches are going quickly. So there's some interesting property.
So found.
But
Yes.
go ahead.
No, I was just going to say the upper end market. I mean, they don't care about interest rates. I mean, it's not going to play a major factor. Whereas
They're typically cash buyers at that point.
yeah.
So,
Yeah, they
and
don't
then they're
need it.
having a moment right now where it doesn't really affect them as much.
Exactly.
So there's a lot of
I am
movement.
curious on the luxury market. Where are they coming from?
Mhm.
Who are they? No, we don't have to give us names, but
Yeah.
just as a general overview, because when we see such polarized ends of a market
Mhm.
and we have such a large percentage that does struggle with
Mhm.
being able to afford a home, and then we look and we go, well, that's, understandable, but hey, look at this segment.
Mhm.
The question is why, outside of the obvious, we live in Austin, Texas.
Yeah. Well, and I think, where I'm seeing a lot of people come is from Houston. We're getting
Okay.
a lot of buyers, moving out here, retiring to Austin. And I think my parents even did the same thing. Like, one day we'll get to Austin. It's beautiful. It's got everything. So big movement from Houston, Dallas, but I mean, obviously California, West Coast.
Yeah. New
you know,
York?
Californians.
Not as many.
Not as many?
I haven't
Okay.
seen as many, but
Just curious.
I've got a lot of California buyers right now. So,
Mm.
I mean, it's a natural progression.
Sure,
There's
of course.
technology, so that's,
Which is fascinating given I believe we saw last week that Elon Musk had made the announcement he was moving the headquarters back to
I saw that.
California.
Yeah.
So I think that that's a fascinating link on, given what we, not to be doom and gloom, but reality is we've seen Facebook do layoffs. We've seen a couple companies say,
Mhm.
hey, we're going to pull
Mhm.
back, or we're not coming into the Austin market.
Yeah.
But yet we're still seeing people with a high net worth
Mhm.
coming in, which I would guess, I'm not an economist, but I would guess that that's a long-term
I think
projection of
so.
how the market rebounds and where.
Yeah. I mean, Austin's so diversified in our job force anyway.
Yeah.
So it's not just tech that's driving, there's medical, there's all these
Good point.
different industries. So maybe tech is having a moment where it's slowed down a little bit, but everything else is picking up. So it's
Well,
kind of
Austin's been
interesting.
through it before. I mean, we
Exactly.
went through it
Mm.
to a major extent back in 2001,
Mhm.
with the .com bubble.
Mhm.
Yeah.
that
And in
clearly
the
burst.
80s,
But then
right?
that was before my time.
I was still crawling.
I was still in California.
I'm kidding.
You guys said that on camera.
Jen, you were too.
Yep.
So let's kind of divert to what we're here to talk about anyway,
Mhm.
home builders. How often do you work with home builders? Is that a
Mm.
big part of your client
Mhm.
needs? What does that look like?
I work a lot with home builders on both sides of it. So not only representing builders, but I'm out with buyers, seeing these communities, trying to get good deals. So I would say about 50% of my business is newer construction.
So let's
Mm.
focus even more so on when you're representing the buyer, because, I
Mhm.
really kind of like the idea of us, creating a conversation that builders can look at and go, okay, well,
Yes.
maybe I didn't know that, or maybe I should know that. So
Yes.
working with buyers that are interested in new construction, whether it's custom or production, whichever angle you want to go down, what do you like about it?
Well, I mean, when you're showing new homes, it's really hard to beat shiny and new. So you go,
Shiny new.
and again, I have clients that I take to resale, and then we go to new construction, and very rarely do we go back
back.
to resale.
Interesting. Yeah.
Because once you see shiny and new, like, why
It's
would
hard.
you don't want to
The
sacrifice.
words haven't shown up yet.
Yeah.
Right.
So, but at the same time, looking at your price point, you're probably going to be a little bit further out if you went shiny and new.
Yeah.
Or, if you need to be in the school district centrally, then
Sure.
you're not going to be able to get that unless you're at a certain price level. So but it's fun to show. it can be challenging to show because you'll show, 20 of the same house and each house has just a tiny little difference.
Point.
And then, so I'm always taking notes, like this is the stinky one, or this is the whatever, like you have nicknames for different houses, or this is the one that looks in the neighbor's bathroom.
Right.
So it's hard, I think, seeing a lot of the same thing over and over and being able to help your buyers differentiate from what they saw and identify why this one fits their needs better. So it's interesting, but you do get really familiar with different communities when you've seen 30 houses in one community in one afternoon. So you can be like, yep, you don't want that street. You want this one.
Right.
So later on, you can help buyers kind of like, well, I'll show you one, but you're probably not going to like that it backs up to this commercial building. So, there's a lot of different nuances with showing new construction, and it's very small details that differentiate each house.
Well, it could be simple lot premiums and, width and all that kind of stuff, small little things that most people think about that cause big differences. I really find it interesting. You mentioned that people start out maybe looking at resale and then go look at new and then go back. Not to throw you a hardball, but can you quantify that a little bit in terms of, are people typically coming to you looking for one or the other first?
Depends on the buyer. I do have a lot of buyers who come, I absolutely want new construction. And then I show them. And sometimes we have to downgrade. Maybe it's not going to work.
Cost or location issues usually.
Yeah. And then usually on the resale side, if I have someone saying, I want this neighborhood, I'm like, well, if you go just a little bit further, we can get you something new. Or maybe we see enough houses and they realize like, I don't like worn carpet, or I can't stand this paint color. And maybe it's just little things that are easy to fix, but they don't want to do it. They want something move-in ready. They want a good deal. So that's when we go look at new construction, and then we usually never look back. Like that's the buyer. So I like to mix in both, but it really depends on each buyer's specific needs. And if location is the most important part, then sometimes new construction is just not an option.
You're going to have to go resale.
Well, and I imagine too, just on that, it was a great question. There has to be a benefit and a value add in addition to shiny and new, that you have a warranty.
Yes.
And in a resale, right? That's an advantage, I would think. Is that something that the buyer thinks of when you're taking them out, or is that you and the home builder salesperson?
It's surprising they don't think about the warranties that often.
They probably should.
They should. I mean, it's
or at
absolutely
least know what your builder's warranty is.
Yes.
Because frequently, you get a 1-year warranty. You might have 5 or 10 years on your heating and AC and all that. But if you need to know what that looks like. So I'm a little surprised that people aren't putting as much of
it is. And I think it's a huge selling feature.
Yeah.
I literally, the first conversation we have is, let me tell you about a 1021. And like, a 1021, what is that? And like, okay, we're going to talk warranties. And then like, even this morning, I have a listing that we finished last month and my clients aren't going to move in. And I'm like, number one selling feature, all the warranties and none of the build time. So, I think it's a huge selling feature that not a lot of buyers think about, or, and I guess sometimes they just don't think that long term. Like, what could possibly happen to a new house? Like everything. No house is perfect.
Yeah.
So
well, and I think that's part of the product of escalating costs. Is now used to be well, I want to see the studs behind the wall before we throw up sheetrock and whatnot. Now it's just throw the house together as quickly and cheaply as we possibly can. Then I want to move it, and I mean from the buyer standpoint.
Yeah.
I mean they don't really care.
They don't want to wait.
They don't want to wait.
Nope.
They're not as interested in the bones, so to speak, and that's not as much of a factor. It used to be a huge selling point that, hey, you know what, I'm using 2x6s instead of 2x4s.
Or a stick built versus truss.
Exactly.
Now it's what you can get your hands on.
Now it's what you can get your hands on without regard.
It's very different.
So, question that just kind of popped in my head. So, in our industry, reviews, as James will attest to, very important to us, through social survey, Google reviews, all that kind of stuff. How important is that to your clients? Because you look at a lot of builder reviews,
they're awful.
They're terrible.
They're horrible.
How important is that?
It does play a huge part. So for my more savvy tech buyers, they will go in and we'll be under contract on a house and be, oh, I read every review on this website and it is the worst and I need to back out and I need to do this. And I'm like, well, what community are they talking about? Because I think every community is different. Every superintendent is different.
Manager, builder,
every project manager. So
absolutely.
there may be one builder that I love in this community and I think they do a really poor job in another community. So I think all of these reviews you take with a grain of salt. You have to educate your buyers like, okay, let's get granular. Let's look at this specific community. What are people saying?
Sure.
And I mean, my easiest way to, judge a community is go grab the neighbors. Like we'll be walking through a community and if anyone's out, I go ask them, hey, how was your buying experience? Do you like living here? How has the warranty process worked for you?
Somebody that's been there for a year.
Exactly.
So
we grab the neighbors. Yeah. I think that's the best review. And sometimes if I have someone who's just really freaking out, I'm like, let's go walk the street. Let's just go walk. Let's see what we can find out. Sometimes it's worked in our favor and sometimes it hasn't. And, but I'd rather someone be happy where they're at than in a home where we knew going in that it wasn't right, or this builder wasn't taking care, or they did a product that maybe was subpar from what we expected.
Well, and on that note too, just the knowledge that you bring from the home building and development side, oftentimes with the reviews, lender, builder, realtor, I know from the builder perspective, there's a huge emphasis on, and it's kind of a catchy thing to say, but there are 1 million moving parts in every home that is built.
Yes.
Those moving parts are moved by human hands.
Yes.
No human is perfect, just like in any,
any
in
industry,
lending,
it doesn't
right?
matter what it is. Yeah. There's always going to be something. If you build the same house 1,000 times, there's going to be something that goes wrong.
Exactly.
Every single time,
and that's a big part of the education piece with buyers is they
Yes.
expect perfection, and you have to break it down and say, there are so many different trades. There's so many different crews. There are, especially during the pandemic, we have different trades coming in. It's who you can get to show up on the job. So maybe they don't have the best framing crew, or maybe they haven't gotten enough inspections back to say, we have made this mistake on 10 houses. Sure. We need to fix it moving forward. So
transparency on everyone's end.
Exactly. Yes. And I love, so here's the challenge though, is that you think that way because you work quite a bit, quite extensively with home builders.
Yeah.
I mean, if we're being really honest, a lot of realtors don't, and a lot of loan officers don't for that matter. So how should home builders address that? How should they make sure that, hey, how do we educate the realtor community that, hey, these are all the challenges that can come up? It's not just you and your house.
Right.
It's part of the industry. How do you think they can help resolve that?
Oh, that's a good question. I mean, I definitely feel like bringing realtors in and educating them and showing them their product, but I have to think about that.
and maybe that's something that, where we really need to work on, as we work on this whole tripod, lender, builder, realtor is educating, hey, walk another mile in another person's shoes, so to speak. So what's going on? How do we, what's really going on behind the scenes? That way, because you are an extension of the builder sales force. We are an extension of the builder sales force. The more we understand the process, the more we can calm our clients' nerves and go, you know what? Delays are inevitable. They do happen. This is why, instead of the panic, all the way up until.
And I think also with the salespeople for the builders, when you mention as a realtor, at what point can we do an inspection? Half of them freak out. They're like, oh, you don't need an inspection. We do all these things. And I think, if a salesperson is to say, we would love for you to have an inspection. We'd love to know what we can improve on. Some things we'll do. Some things are subjective. Some inspectors are a little pickier, or maybe they're using a different set of guidelines than we do. Right. But we'll talk through this because I have had some where you show them an inspection, or I had one, and they wouldn't even look at it. They wouldn't open it. They wouldn't do a thing. And this was a pre-drywall inspection because there were so many beer bottles in the house that we were. And again, maybe this isn't the best example, but
it's good because it's what's happening, right? And I think our mission is to talk about openly
and it scared my clients because it was even in the insulation. They were tucking them in the walls.
We've seen that a number of times.
And this was uncharacteristically high. There was at least 50 in the house that I counted. So this was one where we were like, we're
50 beer bottles?
Yes.
That's a heck of a party.
Why didn't we get invited?
And it was like they wouldn't even open the inspection. They,
Wow.
we showed up, they had their hands on their hips, and we don't meet clients. And I'm like, well, I think this is an important time where maybe you make an exception and we have a conversation. And in that case, and that I think had they handled it better, that could have been a better buying experience. We terminated, we got out of there. Like it just didn't go well.
I love builders that take pride in the workplace. Job site cleanliness and whatnot. And I realize you can't do that all the time when you're throwing together tons of houses, but it goes a long way, because they go, okay, well, if you put that much importance on cleaning up your trash,
right?
What are you going to do for the building of the house itself? And I think that just speaks to quality of workmanship.
And I'm glad you brought that up. I point that out all the time when we'll go through job sites. I'll be like, this is an extremely tidy job site. I want you to notice they have a trash bin. There are no beer bottles in this house. They sweep it at the end of each day. There's no weeds growing through the house. Like just little things like that where if you walk a job site and they're taking care of it, and even if they're aware of you on the job site, I think that's important. They're looking out for your safety, or maybe they come grab you and say, put a hard hat on. You're like, thank you. I appreciate that, So,
and a lot of not a lot, I will say, over the course of 20 years, it's, like you're talking about the beer bottles, and you're talking about the builders, it speaks volumes that they do. Streetman Homes, which has since sold to a bigger builder, but Randy Streetman would fine every vendor $500 if that job site was not picked up when they left. And he did it. And it even expands out our tripod, and you go see it now goes to our trades, the roofing company, the, whomever it is, and how does that align? But then the key understanding, like you're saying, and that you're sharing, is that's what the buyer sees. And then the hands on the hip, that's part of the problem in the communication, is you've got defenses up instead of alignment coming between every party involved. That's
where we need to, I think, educate and participate.
Yes.
Okay, well, what are the frustrations you see? What are the frustrations your clients see, as much as we do on the lending side and the builders on their side? There has to be a willingness, to be able to do that. And I get, again, that it's difficult, especially, a year ago when you had to do everything short of chaining your trades to the job site to make sure you kept them
on the site.
On site, but now we're moving into a market where, things are slower. And I think, we're moving into a healthier market. It's painful right now until we kind of get to where we're supposed to be. But I think going back to the basics in terms of, making sure quality's good.
The customer
job sites are clean.
I agree.
Customers, because every deal is precious again.
Yes.
It wasn't a year ago,
and
like we were
even
talking about earlier.
Access to the superintendent or the person building
That's
your house,
huge.
rather than just dealing with the salesperson. Like, I want to understand why you did it this way, or why is this, hanging off the wall, or why did you rip all this stuff out and not inform me? Like, mistakes happen, and I think as long as you jump ahead of it and you keep that communication and dialogue open, it's a really fun building experience. There are some builders who really go the extra mile, make a buyer feel special, and at the end of it, they're happy to write a review. They'll tell all their friends, but there's
even if something goes wrong,
exactly,
because how you fix it is in some cases, I think, more indicative. I knew if I can say that. I know, right? I can't speak today.
I got you.
It's too many cups of coffee. It's more indicative of how well that builder operates on a regular basis, because when it's easy, it's easy. When challenges come up, how well you fix it, that says a lot. And I love the idea of encouraging builders, encouraging clients to talk to the super or the project manager, builder, what have you. I think it needs to be done more often. And I think builders seem to be doing a better job of making sure their project managers know that, hey, they need to be somewhat accessible. They don't need to be your high personalities necessarily, but having that open communication. And one thing I've heard from builders is, I think there's this impression that if I'm building a house and I'm out there every single day, that the builder's going to hate me. Not necessarily. A lot of times what I've heard from builders is, well, if you're out there all the time, you may be able to catch something that we missed.
Save us some money.
Exactly. And as long as there's mutual respect, and as long as you stay in your lane, like, I'm not going to go out to a house that I'm having built for me and say, hey, this is how you need to build it. Otherwise, I
And
would've
I've
done
had that
myself.
client where he walks up there and
Have
starts
you?
screaming at the trades.
You can't
and
do
you
that.
can't do that, you know?
No,
and
it's more flies with honey.
yes.
And
Yes.
there's a way to do it. So,
Wow.
question: if you had a captive audience of home builders
Mhm.
just listening just to you, what would you tell them? What do they need to know? Good, bad, or ugly?
Yeah. I think they really need to be more hands-on. They need to have more check-ins with the client throughout the process, create some transparency, have a meeting, have a set plan. I think a lot of times it's, oh, we're at this point and now we're here and when is this going to happen? And so just more organization on what the timeline is, knowing the timeline can change. There are so many things where supply chain delays, I mean, that's been the really big one for the last few years.
Sure.
We can't get that fridge. We can't get that door. I mean,
And
I
it
think-
hasn't completely abated. I mean, in
No.
fact, it's every time it starts to trend down, it trends back up again.
Exactly. So I think the transparency is the biggest part,
Yeah.
and owning the mistakes, having
Owning
the
the mistakes, yeah.
accountability,
Yeah.
meeting with your client one-on-one. I know, some of the bigger, one big home builder, they don't really ever meet with the client. They use a third-party company to do the
Yikes.
kind of walkthrough.
Really?
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I've heard of builders doing that on the warranty side, which I still don't think is a great idea. Because
No,
I
it's a
think
blue tape walk where we go in and we
Yes,
have our
it's a
inspection.
project
So it's a
manager.
third party, and
Super.
their perspective is that, it's an independent party that's going to assess the house.
okay, so maybe that
Neutrality.
is not a bad
So
thing then.
there's good, it's a nice aspect, but if you did have the superintendent come in at the end or the
Yes.
foreman and say, okay, let's also
Or
meet.
just do it together.
Yeah. So I think there's some opportunity there. I like it, but at the same time, when we go to say, okay, we need to make these repairs now,
Yeah.
I don't know who I'm directing this towards.
Has this actually been properly articulated to the super, whoever needs to manage that type of work? I think that would be,
And it's confusing to the client too, because they're like, I thought I was talking to the builder. And they're like, no, this is
so
the
they're
third
not
party.
disclosing necessarily.
They
Or they're not
say it,
properly.
But it's
The
not.
buyers aren't paying attention
No,
to that.
they're
not.
so wrapped up and so
Yeah.
excited
It's a very
and what's
emotional
about to
process.
come.
Yeah.
And then if anything
Got
is
it.
slightly off or it doesn't go as expected or there's bad news, it can crush the process. It can crush it for them. So that's where I think the biggest part is the transparency.
Communication,
aspect.
transparency, and
Mhm.
communication.
And another interesting thing as you were sharing that this is a big national builder. One a builder we know well, B&B Homes down in Laredo, they contacted before the holidays, and from a builder's perspective, they were using a third party for their warranty program,
A lot of builders.
and they've pulled it. They're building that system internally so that they can manage it because of the disconnect between the third party, the buyer, and then leadership in the company.
NAHB did a
So
really interesting
fascinating.
article. I think it was last year where they talked about one of the biggest rooms for improvement and opportunity for home builders was the warranty side.
Mhm.
And I think you bring up a really good point, because if you're outsourcing it, you're leaving your reputation up to somebody else. They're looking at that as
Absolutely.
just a transaction,
Mhm.
whereas what if the builder's taking care of it? Because the problem is if you piss off a client,
Mhm.
they're not going to go out
Yeah.
and refer you. Not only that, but they're going to speak very negatively
Yeah.
of you. Whereas if you
all
take
different.
exceptional care,
Mhm.
your existing home buyers are your best sales force.
They are.
They're free.
Mhm.
Should be in
You
the
know?
top three.
Should be the
Lead
top
source
three.
for every builder.
But it's not.
Referral.
Right.
Yeah.
And I'd be curious to see, how their metrics have changed and how many more
they push
referrals by existing clients they get
Yeah.
as they push that out. So we'll have to track that a
Follow.
little bit.
And
Yeah,
that's
that would
I
be
we're
really
agree.
hearing it
interesting.
from
Because
the pro.
on the
other
warranty
yeah.
side, as a realtor, when we have these inspection reports, a lot of builders, we'll get to it. It'll be in the warranty process. And you're like, no, you're going to fix all these things before we close because
Always
I
hard.
don't know if I'm going to see you again. I don't know that
Yeah.
you're going to come back and address these things for my
Yeah.
client, or you're going to push it off to month 11, for my client to give you a list of everything in month 11 before you'll come back out. So every builder is a little bit different in that way
Mhm.
too.
Yeah.
Where sometimes it's the superintendent in the community that comes and does the repairs. But
Yeah.
in this community now, it is the warranty company that's somewhere else, and you file it online and you may hear back in 6
It's
months.
lost
And
in
then in this community, so
Yeah.
it's so different the way they handle it.
Yeah.
And the best ones have always been where they do it in-house and the superintendent there who built that house
100%.
handles that house for 6 months, and then maybe it goes to the warranty
That's fine.
process.
handles
Brandon Dever
everything.
did
And
it
I
for
know
us
we're not,
when they built our
I mean,
house.
I think, it's always fair to shout out to the builders that have taken that on and are
I
doing
have
it.
one
And they
right
still
now.
have their
Perry Homes
challenges.
is doing a
Perry
very
Homes.
good job with my client. And every day he called and they've had some things and they rush in there and they fix it. Like
That's
no questions
amazing.
asked.
important though,
Yeah.
because you need to make sure that final impression is a positive one, even if things
Right.
happen along the way.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Which they will.
Yeah, because otherwise, again, you leave that bad taste, and not only are you not going to refer, but you're going to leave bad reviews. And if you look at most of, from what I've seen,
Yeah.
the online reviews, a good portion of them are warranty work.
They
The
always
builder,
yes.
always.
It was shoddy workmanship.
Yep.
Mhm.
They didn't come back and fix it.
Mhm.
Great point.
Exactly.
So we are just about out of time, but
So much more to
I know
talk
we may
about.
have to have a part 2 of this
Yes.
conversation. I'll let you briefly ask. Well, we're gonna have to do this really quick, but what challenges, in your opinion,
Mhm.
do builders have working with realtors?
Ooh.
And I know I'm asking you to put yourself in their shoes, because
Yeah.
we know that there can be a lot of,
Mhm.
there's some friction a
There
lot of
is.
times. So what do you think builders, why do builders feel it can be a challenge to work with realtors at times?
I think
your
a
opinion?
lot of realtors can be alarmist, where
Yes.
one little thing happens and they blow it out of proportion. They don't try to communicate about the issue.
Great
They
point.
don't try to find common ground to reach that solution. So
Great point.
yes, I agree. Some realtor, and I've been on the other side of it representing builders and working with especially difficult, cantankerous realtors who just want to fight about everything. And, sometimes you have to pick your battles,
Think about it.
and understand maybe it's not even that important to the client, but they are just fighting because it's important to them. And at the end of the day, it's not about the realtor, it's about the client. We are
Love that.
servicing
Yeah,
our clients.
That's such a good perspective.
And we are working together,
Yeah,
and we
yeah.
got to
Right,
shake our
together.
hand across the table and say, builder, I'm working with you, and I'm going
Right.
to help explain
100%.
where you're not explaining, and you're going to help explain where I'm maybe missing the mark. And I think if we all look at it that way, as we're working together with lender, builder, realtor, that's a better symbiotic relationship to make it work for the client. Because at the end of the day, it's their house, it's their goal, it's their
100%.
dream. It's not ours. We are
Yeah.
just players in this game to help get them there. So
Man, that was
Boom.
one heck of a way to wrap up. I think that's a mic
I
drop
should write
right
that
there. So,
down.
I mean, we'll
Got
have,
it on
we'll
tape.
have
Yes.
to make sure James will make that last little
There we go.
pulpit
Teaser
speech.
clip.
That was
There we go.
Great. Well, I'm sorry. I know I wish we had more time.
Yeah.
There's so much more to talk about, but again, maybe that's what we'll do is have you come back and
With the builder, maybe.
if you're willing.
yes,
I'd
I'd love to. This is fun.
We'll do an old fashioned rock'em sock'em type
Yeah.
conversation.
Knockout night.
There you go.
Yeah, no.
There you go. But I think it's really valuable. And I think if we can all foster communication between lender, builder, and realtor, maybe we can have a small impact on the industry. So
I agree.
that would be fun.
That would be good.
Thank you so much for being here.
Thank you for having me.
Yeah, absolutely. So good to be back.
Yes.
And look forward to next episode.
And until next time.
Until next time.
All right.
Thanks, everybody.